Every time you do this, this, or even this, you're starting a process that most people rarely think about. Yes, for most of us, it's just something we do several times each day without much thought. Lucky for us, our county, Lake County, works hard to keep our water clean. The Lake County Department of Utilities does a great job of recovering one of our most valuable natural resources, water. Since Roman times, water has been transported by pipes and plumbing and put to work for us in a variety of ways. But where does all of that water go when we're done with it? In Lake County, there are almost 900 miles of sewer line. 900 miles. That's enough pipe to go across the entire state almost 4 times. The Lake County Department of Utilities maintains most of those lines and the pump stations along the way that bring most of that wastewater right to here. This is the Gary Crone Water Reclamation Facility in Mentor, Ohio. This huge facility, situated close to Lake Erie, treats most of the wastewater we have used. It has the capacity to treat up to 38 million gallons of wastewater a day to standards higher than those set by the EPA. That's enough water to fill almost 2,500 backyard swimming pools. Wastewater coming into the plant is called Influent, and it enters through a large chamber and a 60-inch diameter pipe. Up to 55 million gallons of wastewater can enter the plant each day. 5 pumps lift the Influent up into this building, where it is bar screened and then passed through 2 aerated grit tanks that remove some of the solids or grit.
As you can see, there's a lot of particles in there. It's screened, so that's good. We don't have really a lot of heavy solids in there, and we want to keep the sludge to come through. You know, we want that. So this is the first stage of our process.
The grit is collected and sent to the county landfill, and the water's journey begins. The water begins to flow through the plant by entering 6 large primary settling tanks, where it's allowed to sit quietly. Slowly, some of the particles settle out and sink to the bottom, and the clearer water starts to flow upward and outward through a series of rings. In each tank, a skimmer slowly moves across the top surface and collects floating substances like grease and oils.
This would be the effluent of the primary tanks. Again, there's a little bit of solids in there, much less than there was in the raw, and hopefully, and that right there is a normal primary sample of what we receive every day.
Once through the settling tanks, the water is pumped to the top of these 2 large 31-foot tall tanks, known as trickling filters. The water then works its way downward through 26 feet of filter material that's stacked in layers. Trickling filters work naturally, much like the way moss traps solids flowing through a stream. Solids are removed, and most harmful industrial waste is captured during the trickling filter process. The lab, located on site, keeps tabs on this process and everything else 24 hours a day. Samples are taken regularly at several stations to monitor substances in the water that are either helping or hindering the process. The lab also identifies any harmful chemicals or elements like mercury, copper, or zinc that may be entering our water through the sewer system. A special department called pre-treatment monitors the wastewater in our sewers to keep an eye out for any hazardous substances that may be on the way. After leaving the trickling filters, the water flows to these 9 large basins known as aeration tanks. It is here that the microorganisms in the water start to do their job of removing other solids suspended in the mix. A delicate balance between the living microorganisms and their food must be maintained so that the process will work.
Now, as far as bacteria is concerned, there are some areas in the plant which we want it to thrive, and that is the aeration tanks. Quite honestly, bacteria removes pollutants from the wastewater, so we want to give it an environment to thrive. Oxygen is one, food is another, and they reproduce.
The organisms eat their food and create a sticky substance called floc that will easily settle out of the water in the next process. For the first time in its journey through the plant, a chemical, a ferrous chloride solution, is added into the mix to remove the phosphates put into the wastewater by the soaps and detergents that left our sinks and washing machines.
Mostly the soaps and the detergents, when we're talking about them, we're talking about phosphorus, and is a food for the algae, and that produces algae growths. So really the concern is the phosphorus in the soaps and the detergents.
In a short time, the biology has done its work, and the mixed liquor moves on. These are the final settling tanks, which receive the aerated liquor. This is the last place the water will sit to let the flock settle to the bottom. In a sophisticated control room, Ohio EPA licensed operators monitor the flow into and out of the plant, along with all of the plant functions. The staff can even monitor the many pumps out in the county that keep the flow moving. So what's happening to all of that stuff, the flock and the sludge, that settles to the bottom of all these filters and tanks? How do we get rid of that? Well, there's another side of the plant that's job is to turn all of that sludge into a useful product. The sludge and other sludge collected from other plants and septic systems is held and then fed into machines called gravity belt thickeners. These machines reduce the amount of water in the sludge and start to thicken it. When it is properly thickened, the sludge and the materials collected by the skimmers on the settling tanks enter a process called anaerobic digestion. The digesters are heated tanks that oxidize the organic matter in the sludge to make it more stable. The digesters rid the sludge of disease-causing organisms and help eliminate odors. The methane gas that results is used to heat these tanks and even fuel parts of the plant. The excess is stored or burned off at this stack. The digested sludge moves to the secondary digesters before it travels further to these machines called belt filter presses. The water is literally pressed out of the sludge as it is squeezed between the belts. Up to 30 tons of sludge cake can be produced each hour. The water from the presses is returned to the head of the plant. The sludge cake is moved by truck into another huge building at the plant, the compost building, and something amazing starts to happen. In the compost building, sawdust and wood chips are added to the dewatered sludge, and nature begins to take its course. Slowly over time, and with the help of a large machine called a composter, the material cooks its way down to a safe, pathogen-free soil conditioner. It is screened to remove the larger wood chips and stored at the Lake County Solid Waste Facility. The resulting mulch can be used at nurseries right here in Lake County or anywhere else it's needed. Back at the final settling tanks, the water is flowing towards its last steps of treatment here at the plant. The water is allowed to briefly come in contact with sodium hyperchlorite to disinfect it, killing any germs before it leaves the plant. The chemical is then neutralized by another substance before it moves to this final tank. This is the Effluent aeration tank. Effluent is the name used for water at the output end of a process at the plant. Large amounts of air are once again bubbled through the now cleaned water to maintain a high level of dissolved oxygen. The effluent is actually much cleaner now than lake water and is always above standards set by the EPA. It is allowed to flow naturally or is pumped out to where its journey began, Lake Erie.
At this stage, it has been chlorinated, it has been dechlorinated, it has added air, and then it goes over a weir and out to the effluent line and into the lake.
The newest additions to the plant are 2 large biofilters. The air from several buildings at the site is collected and run through these filters to help remove some of the odors that occur in the process.
What they are an area where we run corrugated pipe through it, and it actually sucks the air out of the compost building and the Influent building. There's organic and inorganic material piled up on that, and it draws the air through them and eliminates the odor, and they really do a good job.
The Lake County Department of Utilities is hard at work doing everything possible to keep our water clean. You can take these simple steps to do your part when using water at home or at work. Never pour harmful substances like motor oil or solvents down the drain. Try to limit the amount of phosphates you use. Never pour chemicals like paint thinners, acids, or antifreeze into a sewer. Grease and oils from cooking should be disposed of properly, not down the drain. Mix and use pesticides carefully and never pour them into a sewer. And always remember that storm sewers feed directly out untreated into the lake. Lake Erie is our most valuable natural resource. Please do your part to keep it clean.